The signal from the void. The darkness between stars held secrets that Captain Elena Vasquez never expected to find. Floating 300 light-years from Earth, the starship Resilience drifted through a region of space so empty that even cosmic dust seemed to avoid it. Elena stood on the bridge, her weathered hands gripping the command rail as she studied the impossible object hanging in the void ahead. It looked like a crystalline cathedral, its surface gleaming with patterns of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The structure was massive, easily the size of a small moon, yet it gave off no heat signature and barely registered on their sensors. Whatever built this had technology far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," called Lieutenant Sarah Torres from the communications station. Her voice carried an edge of excitement mixed with fear. "It's not directed at us, but it's broadcasting continuously on multiple frequencies." Elena moved closer, her dark eyes fixed on the alien construct. After 18 months of deep space exploration, they had found plenty of dead worlds and asteroid fields, but nothing like this. "Can you decode it?" "Dr. Park is working on it now," Torres replied. Glancing toward the science station where Dr. James Park hunched over his console, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. James looked up, pushing his glasses up his nose with a trembling hand. The ship's chief geneticist was brilliant but young, barely 30, and this was his first deep space mission. "Captain, this is incredible. The signal contains what appears to be biological data, genetic sequences, cellular structures, evolutionary patterns. It's like a vast library of life forms." Elena felt her pulse quicken. First contact protocols had been drilled into every Earth fleet officer, but nothing had prepared them for finding an ancient alien database floating in the middle of nowhere. Any indication of who built it or how long it's been here? Before James could answer, their sensors erupted with new contacts. Ships were materializing out of faster-than-light travel all around them. Sleek vessels with organic curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Elena's hand moved instinctively toward the weapons controls, but she forced herself to stop. The unknown ships made no aggressive moves, instead forming a loose perimeter around both the Resilience and the mysterious structure. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Resilience," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are peaceful explorers. Please identify yourselves." The response came immediately, the voice melodic yet somehow sad. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We are the Keth Mori Confederation. We have been waiting for someone to find the archive of the Shapers. We did not expect it to be you." Elena exchanged glances with her crew. The Keth Mori's words carried an ominous weight that made her stomach tighten. "What do you mean by that?" "Perhaps it is better if we speak in person," the alien voice replied. "We have much to discuss about what you have discovered and what it means for both our species." An hour later, Elena stood in the Resilience's main conference room facing three beings unlike anything she had ever imagined. The Keth Mori were tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like oil on water and large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to hold depths of ancient wisdom. Their leader, who introduced himself as Harmony Keeper Zenthal, spoke in the same melodic tones they had heard over the radio. "The structure you have found," Zenthal began, his voice heavy with regret, "is a monument to the greatest mistake in galactic history. The Shapers were an ancient race that vanished eons ago, but their legacy haunts us still." Dr. Park leaned forward eagerly. "The genetic data we're receiving from the archive is extraordinary. The complexity and variety suggest they were master bioengineers, capable of creating or modifying life on a scale we can barely comprehend." Zenthal's expression darkened, if such a thing was possible for an alien. Yes, they were masters of life itself. But their greatest creations were not meant to heal or nurture. They were weapons of war, designed to fight in conflicts that consumed entire star systems. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of weapons?" "Living ones," Zenthal replied. "The Shapers believed that mechanical weapons could be countered, but biological ones could adapt, evolve, overcome any defense. They created warrior races, each designed for specific types of combat. Some were built for strength, others for speed, still others for cunning and tactical brilliance. James's hands flew over his portable scanner as he analyzed the data streaming from the archive. His face grew pale as patterns emerged in the genetic information. "Captain, I'm seeing sequences that look familiar. Some of these genetic markers are very similar to..." He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening in horror as the implications hit him. Alina saw the change in his expression and felt her heart begin to race. "Similar to what, Doctor?" "To human DNA," James whispered. "Captain, according to this data, humanity matches one of the Shaper warrior templates. We're not just similar, we're almost identical to something called the adaptive combat strain." The conference room fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's life support systems. Alina stared at James, trying to process what he had just said. It couldn't be true. Humanity had evolved naturally on Earth, developing from primitive ancestors over millions of years. They had fossil records, evolutionary trees, clear evidence of natural selection. Zenthal's voice broke the silence. "I feared this might be the case. Your species displays many of the characteristics we know from Shaper records. The rapid technological advancement, the remarkable adaptability, the fierce territorial instincts. Most telling of all is your response to conflict." "What do you mean?" Alina asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "Most intelligent species avoid war whenever possible," Zenthal explained. "We Keth-Mori spent millennia learning to resolve disputes through harmony and consensus. The Veltar prefer isolation to conflict. The Quin-Eth would rather migrate to new worlds than fight for old ones. But humans seem to thrive on conflict. Every challenge makes you stronger. Every defeat teaches you new strategies. You are the only species we know that becomes more dangerous the more you are threatened." Alina wanted to deny it, but the evidence was overwhelming. Human history was written in blood and conflict. Every great advancement had come through struggle. Every period of peace had eventually given way to new wars. Even their exploration of space had begun as a competition between nations, each trying to prove their superiority over the others. James continued to study the archive data, his face growing more troubled with each passing minute. "Captain, there's more. The genetic modifications don't just affect physical capabilities. They influence brain chemistry, hormone production, neural development. Everything about human psychology and physiology has been optimized for warfare." "That's impossible," Alina protested. "We have art, music, literature. We're capable of love, compassion, creativity. We're not just mindless killing machines." "No," Zenthal agreed sadly. "You are much more dangerous than that." The Shapers learned from their earlier mistakes. Pure warriors are predictable, limited in their thinking. But a warrior race that could also create, innovate, and inspire others to fight alongside them. That was their masterpiece. The weight of the revelation settled over Alina like a crushing burden. Everything she thought she knew about humanity, about their place in the universe, had been a lie. They were not peaceful explorers who occasionally fought when necessary. They were weapons designed and built for the sole purpose of waging war. But even as the truth sank in, Alina felt something else stirring inside her. A familiar feeling she had experienced countless times before when faced with impossible odds. It was the same sensation she had felt as a young pilot dodging enemy fire. The same rush she had experienced leading her first command through a dangerous asteroid field. It was the thrill of the challenge, the excitement of standing against overwhelming opposition and refusing to back down. The Shaper genes in her blood were responding to the threat, preparing her body and mind for the fight that was coming. Because Alina could see it in Zenthal's eyes, in the way the other Keth-Mori had positioned themselves near the exits, in the subtle tension that had filled the room. The aliens were afraid of what they had learned, and fear led to only one logical conclusion for most species. They were going to try to eliminate the threat before it could spread. "What happens now?" Elena asked, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. Zenthal's reply confirmed her worst fears. Now we must decide what to do about a warrior race that has just learned it was born to fight. The Confederation will need to vote on whether humanity can be allowed to continue existing, or whether the threat must be contained before it grows beyond our ability to stop it. Elena looked around the conference room at her crew. She saw the same realization dawning in their eyes, the same awakening of something primal and dangerous. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and light years from home. By any rational calculation, they were doomed. But as she met the gaze of each crew member, Elena saw something else. She saw the fire that had driven humans to climb every mountain, cross every ocean, and reach for every star. She saw the stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had carried their species through countless disasters. She saw the spark of defiance that the Shapers had built into their very genes. The Keth Mori might have superior technology and greater numbers, but they had just made a fatal mistake. They had awakened sleeping giants and told them exactly what they were capable of. The conference room fell silent as both sides prepared for what was coming. Outside the viewports, more alien ships continued to arrive, their sleek forms gathering like predators around wounded prey. But Elena Vasquez smiled, feeling the familiar weight of command settling on her shoulders. The galaxy was about to learn why the Shapers had chosen humanity as their ultimate creation. The war for human survival was about to begin. When warriors remember their purpose, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire, carried by quantum communication networks that linked thousands of civilizations. Within hours of the discovery at the Shaper Archive, emergency sessions were being called on every major world. The impossible had happened. A warrior race had been found, alive and thriving, completely unaware of its true nature. On the Keth Mori homeworld of Serenity Prime, the Great Assembly had not seen such chaos in over 1,000 years. Representatives from dozens of species filled the crystalline amphitheater, their voices rising in fear and anger as they debated humanity's fate. The Veltar delegation huddled together, their scaled forms trembling with anxiety. The insectoid Quineth clicked their mandibles in distress, while the energy beings of the Luxari flickered with agitated patterns of light. High Arbiter Melndera, eldest of the Keth Mori, raised her 4 arms for silence. Her ancient voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement field. The evidence is undeniable. The humans match Shaper genetic templates with 97% accuracy. They are living weapons, created for the sole purpose of warfare. A representative of the Veltar coalition stepped forward, his serpentine body coiled with tension. Then the solution is obvious. We must act before they fully awaken to their nature. A surgical strike on their homeworld while they are still confined to a single system. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. But Melndera held up a warning hand. You underestimate the danger. Our scouts report that news of the discovery has already reached Earth through their own communication networks. Even now, their military forces are mobilizing. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Captain Elena Vasquez fought to keep her ship and crew alive as they raced toward Earth with the most important intelligence in human history. The Resilience had barely escaped the Keth Mori fleet, her hull scarred by energy weapons, and her engines pushed beyond safe limits. But they had achieved something more valuable than their lives. They had bought humanity time to prepare. Elena stood in her ready room, staring at the holographic display that showed Earth's solar system still days away. Behind her, the door chimed softly. Enter, she called, not turning around. Dr. James Park stepped into the room, his face haggard from sleepless hours spent analyzing the archive data. In his hands, he carried a data pad filled with revelations that would change everything humanity thought they knew about themselves. Captain, I've completed my analysis of the Shaper genetic modifications, he said, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. What we learned at the archive was just the beginning. The changes run deeper than we imagined. Elena finally turned to face him, seeing the weight of terrible knowledge in his eyes. Tell me. James activated his data pad, filling the air with holographic representations of DNA strands and cellular structures. The Shapers didn't just modify our physical capabilities. They rewired our entire nervous system for combat effectiveness. Our reflexes are enhanced, our pain tolerance is increased, and our adrenal response is far beyond normal biological parameters. He paused, struggling with the implications of his next words. But the psychological modifications are even more extensive. Our brain chemistry is designed to produce specific responses to threat situations. We don't just fight when cornered. We become more intelligent, more creative, more determined to survive. Every challenge triggers an evolutionary response that makes us stronger. Evolutionary response that makes us stronger. Elena absorbed this information with the calm focus that had made her one of Earth's finest captains. You're saying we literally become more dangerous the more pressure we're under. Exactly, James confirmed. And there's something else. The genetic modifications appear to be dormant until activated by extreme stress. Most humans never experience conditions severe enough to trigger the full response. But now, with our entire species facing extinction, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Elena could feel it herself, a sharpening of her senses, a clarity of thought she had never experienced before. Her mind was processing tactical possibilities at superhuman speed, calculating odds and developing strategies with an efficiency that should have been impossible. On Earth, the transformation was already beginning. Commander Alex Chen stood in the war room beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing the deployment of every military asset humanity possessed. As Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, he had spent his career preparing for the possibility of alien contact. But nothing in his training had prepared him for this. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. General Sarah Morrison, his chief of staff, stepped forward with a data tablet. "All colonial worlds have been alerted and are implementing full defensive protocols. The Mars shipyards are operating at maximum capacity, and we've recalled every vessel from deep space missions. But, sir, the numbers don't look good. Intelligence estimates suggest the alien coalition forming against us includes over 200 member species." Alex studied the tactical displays, his enhanced mind already formulating responses to seemingly impossible odds. The genetic modifications Dr. Park had discovered were activating in him just as they were in millions of other humans around the globe. Military personnel found themselves thinking with crystal clarity, developing strategies and innovations at an unprecedented pace. "Have the shipyards begun production of the new weapon systems?" Alex asked. "Yes, sir. The designs the research teams developed are unlike anything we've built before. It's as if our engineers suddenly understood principles of physics they'd never been taught." Alex nodded grimly. That was exactly what was happening. The Shaper modifications included enhanced pattern recognition and intuitive understanding of complex systems. Under extreme stress, humans could make leaps of logic and innovation that would take other species generations to achieve. But even as humanity prepared for war, not everyone accepted their genetic destiny. In universities and research centers around the world, heated debates raged about what it meant to be human. If they were created as weapons, did that define their purpose? Could they choose to be something else? Dr. Elena Vasquez's sister, Maria, stood before a packed auditorium at Cambridge University, her voice carrying clearly to the thousands of students and faculty who had gathered to hear her speak. As one of Earth's leading philosophers, she had been asked to address the existential crisis facing their species. "We are more than the sum of our genes," she declared, her passion evident in every word. "Yes, we may have been created for war, but we have also created art that moves the soul, music that inspires hope, and literature that explores the depths of human experience. We have the power to choose our own destiny." But even as she spoke these words, Maria could feel the changes happening within her own body and mind. Her thoughts were becoming sharper, more focused. Her awareness of potential threats had increased dramatically. The warrior genes were awakening in her just as they were in every other human being, regardless of their personal beliefs or desires. The first alien attack came without warning, striking the research station on Europa with devastating precision. The facility, which had been studying the ice moon's subsurface ocean, was vaporized in seconds by weapons that turned matter itself into pure energy. The message was clear. Humanity's expansion into space would be met with immediate and overwhelming force. But the aliens had miscalculated. Instead of terrorizing humanity into submission, the attack triggered the full activation of their Shaper modifications. Across Earth and its colonies, humans began to change in ways that defied conventional understanding of biology and psychology. Captain Elena Vasquez felt the transformation as the Resilience finally entered Earth's solar system. Her crew had become something beyond their former selves. Faster, smarter, more intuitive than any humans in history. When alien interceptors appeared to block their path, Elena's tactical response was so swift and precise that the enemy ships were destroyed before they could fire a shot. "Captain," called Lieutenant Torres from her station, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Defense Command. All ships are to rendezvous at Mars for immediate deployment." Elena studied the tactical display showing the massive fleet assembling around the red planet. Hundreds of human vessels, many incorporating technologies that had been impossible just weeks before, prepared for a war that would determine their species' survival. But as she watched the fleet formations taking shape, Elena realized something that the aliens had failed to understand. The Shapers hadn't just created humanity to be warriors. They had created them to be the ultimate warriors. Every defeat would make them stronger. Every challenge would unlock new capabilities. Every threat would drive them to innovations that other species would consider miraculous. Commander Alex Chen's voice crackled over the fleet communication system, carrying a confidence that seemed impossible given the odds they faced. "All ships, this is Earth Defense Actual. The enemy believes they know what we are. Weapons created for war. They're right about that, but they've made a fatal mistake. They think that makes us predictable." Elena smiled as she listened to Alex's words, feeling the truth of them resonating in her enhanced consciousness. They don't understand that being created for war doesn't make us slaves to violence. It makes us the most dangerous thing in the universe, warriors who can choose when and how to fight. The alien coalition had assembled the largest military force in galactic history, confident that their overwhelming numbers and superior technology would quickly eliminate the human threat. But as Elena's ship joined the formation at Mars, she knew they were about to learn the difference between fighting a war and fighting humans. The Shapers had designed their ultimate creation well. Humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of when their survival was at stake. The war would be fierce, brutal, and unlike anything the universe had ever seen. And for the first time in their genetically modified lives, humans would fight not because they had to, but because they chose to defend their right to exist as more than just weapons. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and Elena Vasquez couldn't wait to show the galaxy what Earth's children could do when they finally understood what they truly were.